beginning?
No, we're just
Go.
All right. Welcome everyone to Group 5 is what I've been told we are. We are building Minesweeper. This is Jake Anderson. With us online we also have Desiree, Caitlin, Megan, Lana, and Richard. To start this little shindig off, we're going to go over the if, else, if, and else statements. So, anyone see that? All right. Here in our Minesweeper game, we're going to need a class that will generate an event based on a mouse click. That mouse click, you know, if you've played the game Minesweeper, you click on the square, and either one of three things happens. You've got the... I guess I don't have them written out anywhere. But you're going to hit a mine, and you're going to... game over. You're going to hit a number, and it will uncover a cell between 1 and 8. Or you're going to hit one of those blank spaces, and you know it'll open up quite a large area. So to kind of do a mock simulation of this, we've got this little list that has these three values, which will return a mine, a number, or a blank space. So when you click your mouse, if this were just a very, very simple game, what the if statement does is it runs a Boolean check to see if a statement is true. It could be greater than, equals to, any of those operators. In here we've chosen that if the mouse click is equal to 111, then that will be a mine, and it will return the run explode. And then if that statement was untrue, it would typically default to the else. So only if the click is 111 will it do something, and then else anything else would print out this warning, or anything. You can put anything in here really. It's I don't even know what to call it. Anyway, you can have it check for other true statements as well using else if, an else if statement. So if you click and it's 111, it will run this method down there. Else, check this. If the mouse click is 101, we can run this method. Else, it will do another Boolean check. If this mouse click is 100, it will run a space. If for any reason you get any and every other return value for the mouse click, we'll run an error, because I only want one of three things to happen. We don't want random alphabets to start popping up and whatnot. It's either going to be a mine, a number, or a space. To give you a brief little example here, we're just going to go ahead and run it. As you can see, if this were an actual game, you would have just uncovered lots of cells by clicking on empty space. So we can guess that the value was 100. Let's run it again. We clicked on a 3. Good job. And a 2, a space again, and a bomb. So what's happening every time is it will get a value by running the, see, mouse click equals get mouse click. It'll get the value, check if it fits into one of these operators, and then it's not going to get a false, but if it did, it'll go over there. That concludes if else's. I'll turn my time over now to Desiree.
Thanks, Jake. I'm going to be talking about the while loops. And what the while loop does is check a Boolean statement. So it's going to check if this while loop has a true statement all the time. Another loop that's different from other loops is that our while loop is always going to check at the top of the loop instead of at the bottom. And if you use a while loop and the user inputs something is false, the loop could never run. This is also a while loop, as Lana will explain later. So if, for example, if you have x equals greater than 0, the user clicks, the loop will never run. Um, the while loop is best used if you want the loop to run an unknown number of times. We have our while loop in the options menu, and as you can see, we have our int easy equals 1. So we have some variables up here, and down here, the user is going to enter 1, 2, or 3. And what our while loop is going to do is it's going to see if our choice, which is easy, change that to an integer, and if it is an appropriate integer, 1, 2, or 3, it's going to break. It's going to run at the bottom. Now, if it there like a or a B or a character for some reason, then it's going to run this error, and then it's going to back up to our while loop. And that is the gist of what a while. And the time over to Lana, and she's a loop.
Okay, this is Lana, and I am going to talk about the do while loop. And we have one in our main menu view Java class, and it's all of this area here. And in the do while, it starts with just the do, and then the while part is clear down at the bottom. And the ideal time to use a do while loop is when you need the loop to run at least one time, which is why we have this in our main menu, because we want it to, you want to be able to display the menu to the user and not have a false situation to begin with. So in this loop, the first thing that it does is it will call the function that we have down here below to display. And then in this variable that we assigned up above called command, it's going to get input from the user. And then in case they use lowercase or if they used uppercase, we put a trim statement in here to convert it to uppercase so that we only had to do a condition for uppercase. And then in our do while loop, we also have a switch statement. And I'm not going to talk about that because Rich will talk about that later. And when we get past all of this, we get down to the while. And in our while portion of it, it's if the command variable is not equal to X from this situation up here, then it will continue running the loop over and over again. And because X is what we want to leave this loop. And then when it finally goes out, it will return to the back up to the top of the class. And so I'll turn the time over to Megan.
Hi all, my name's Megan. I'm going to discuss the for loop. So as you can see, so there are four main components to the for loop. This is the declaring and initializing the loop control variable. Oops, I lost it. There we go. You then have a checking condition. And last you have the incrementing loop control variable, and of course you have the main part where it runs. So you start out with that initializing variable, and it will immediately check to see if it's within the condition that's set, which in this case it's the length of the menu item of the high score view class, object. And if if I is less than that, then it will run this. It will run this line. After it runs that line, it will increment the I, and it will check again to see if it's still within the condition. And if it is within the condition, it'll run again. Otherwise, if it's not, it will break it and move on to the line that came after the for loop. And that is the for loop. Next, Caitlin is going to present.
Okay, so one way you can use that for loop is for sorting an array. So here's one of our arrays that we created. An array is basically an indexable list that you plug in to the computer. So it's like making a table, like a chart table on the program. And so how you call it is, well, this is an integer array. So you put int, and then you put the name of the array, and then the brackets, and then equal sign, and then you list all of the things that you want in that array. So here we have a list of our high scores, and they're in no particular order because you can use arrays to sort things, which is really nice. So we have that list. So this is a one-dimensional array, meaning that it only uses like one line instead of lines and columns. So instead of like an x and a y, it just has the x. So that makes it the one-dimensional array. Here's an example of a two-dimensional array. It uses an x and a y, so it makes kind of a bigger table, a grid kind of thing. So that's a two-dimensional array. And you could put in more elements in here if you wanted to, in like the same pattern, just in a list. Coming back to this one. So this is the one that we worked on as a group to create, and it's our high score array. So eventually this will collect all the high scores. And then down here is where we sort it. And here's our for statements for that. So you make a function that sorts the array, and it steps through everything in the array sequentially and puts it all in order. So this kind of sort is called a selection sort. There's other ways to sort arrays. There's bubble sorting, there's exchange sort, there's shell sort. For this one we used a selection sort. And so what it does is it goes through, steps through the array and compares everything to each other. So it would compare the 45 and the 28. Since the 28 is smaller, it leaves it there. Then it would compare the 45 and the 2, and since the 2 is smaller, it would switch it. And so it kind of just steps through the whole program and sorts it until it's all completely in order. From smallest to largest. Yep. So yeah, that's pretty much it for how to create an array and how to sort it. Now over to Rich, who's going to talk about the switch functions.
Okay, thanks, Caitlin. So this is Rich Bell. I'm going to talk about the switch statement. The switch statement that we have we've used inside of our menu functions. So it's running inside of the do while statement that Lana talked about, but basically there's the two main parts of a switch statement is you've got switch and then you've got case where you're going to match on something. So you start with the switch, and then it's grabbing this command variable that was input, and then it's going to run on down through these case statements. So if we match on an A, it's going to go ahead and run the display action help function, and when it's done, it'll break out of this list. The break is important because without that, afterwards it would come back here and keep running down the list. So if you had multiple matches, it could run multiple things, which could come in handy in certain cases, but in the menu it does not. The main difference between the switch and the if that we talked about earlier is the if-else and if statement allow you to match on multiple variables and objects, whereas the switch is used for when you just have a single integer or a single character or string you want to match on. Now I'll go ahead and run what we have for our game so far. Open this up and we'll run it. So when we run, we get our welcome message, welcome to the game. We hit OK. it launches what we've started for our GUI, where we've got a main menu and a help menu. The help menu brings up multiple things, so if you click on, you want to know how the board works, it'll bring up a description of what the board consists of and how many mines you have, or the object of the game if you don't know how Minesweeper works. Inside the main menu, we've got our statistics menu where we've got our arrays taking place. So if we go into like our top 10 high scores, we're going to take that array, sort it, and list out the top 10 high scores by times. So of course 2 seconds is the quickest, 67 seconds is the longest. So and then that same array, it'll go and pull the high score out of that array. Or we can go ahead and play the game. When you start the game, it asks you for your name, asks you to choose a difficulty. So we could choose easy, medium, or hard. We choose easy. It then pulls up the game here on our text field for now, and then it's going to ask you to choose a column and a row. So we could do 1 and 1. If we hit 2 and 2, we hit a bomb, and the game is over. Anyways, that's our game. This is what we got so far for today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.